Welcome Rotarians and guests to the Rotary Club of York, where we connect York's diverse community leaders through service and fellowship to create a thriving community. I am President-elect Courtney Piccolo, filling in today for President Aaron Jacobs, who, as you can see from my picture here I have, is already digging himself a little bit into a hole, starting his presidency. There he is. So first week as president, he's enjoying some family time at the beach. So some well-deserved time to Aaron. Our opening song today will be God Bless America, and the pledge will be led by Deb Harrison, followed by invocation by past President Jackie Summers and visitor introduction by Phil Woods. If you have not done so already, please make sure that your devices are on silent.
Please join me. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans wide with flow. God bless America, my sweet home. God bless America, my sweet home. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could you kindly join me in a word of prayer? Dear Lord, creator and sustainer of all, we give you thanks for this time of fellowship and friendship. May we be mindful of the opportunities you've made known to us to render service above self. Continue to guide us in doing all we can to ensure a better and more meaningful path for future generations. We ask for your blessings upon our President-elect Courtney, our Rotary President Aaron, and the club leaders as they strive toward new goals and challenge us to remain ever focused on the tenets of Rotary and the four-way test. Please bless our speakers and their commitment to York County. Thank you for providing them with leadership and dedication spanning 100 years and for all they've done to help shape and strengthen our community. We give you thanks for this food and to those who have prepared and served it. We commend this time to you in all honor and praise. Amen.
I'm pleased to have the honor of introducing our guests for today's meeting. When I call your name, please stand and remain standing until President-elect Courtney has welcomed you. Guests of past President Dia Hershey, Cameron Wheeler. Guests of Darren Smith, Ryan Tate. The following are guests of student education, Katrina Wolf, Morgan Kaler, and Carson Lehman. Following our guest of past President John Kleindienst, Jordan Good, Chris Toms, Dina Trebilcock, Linda Davidson, and Kevin Willi. Following our guest of Ray Rosen, Melody Davis, and Edwin Davis. Guest of Tom Calderon, Albert Liao. Guest of Kim Alvarez, Deborah Best. And guest of Matt Summer, Ben Shipley.
Yes, it is a pleasure to have you with us today. I hope you have enjoyed a delicious meal and met some friendly Rotarians, and I'm sure that you'll enjoy today's program. Please visit us as often as you'd like, and please consider being a Rotarian if you feel that's the right choice for you. So thank you for being here today. Rotarians, if you could please help me welcome our guests. You may be seated. And now for some announcements. The Youth Development Committee will meet on July 13th at 9 a.m. via Zoom. Our club's board of directors will meet on July 20th at 8 a.m. via Zoom. And for my next announcement, if I could have past president Rob Bowen, please join me at the podium. As you entered today, you may have signed up to win something. I'm not sure if Rob even told you what it was for, a free car, something. And it was for some tickets to the York Fair. So Rob is the chair for Fellowship Committee. And as many of you know, in the past, we have had several fellowship gatherings at the York Fair. This year, unfortunately, we're not able to go there in person due to limitations on the York Fair's end, but they did donate some tickets to our club, which is what you entered yourself to win today. So at this time, Rob's going to pull a couple names, and each name that we call will win 4 tickets to the York Fair, which starts next Friday. So Rob, if you want to go ahead and pull some names.
For all the people that gave me an extra $1, your tickets are on here. I'll let you pull.
All right.
First winner is
Ben Hoover, and you can get your Ben Hoover. Yep. And you can get your tickets with Heather after the meeting right up front.
Okay.
Brittany Beam,
These are the top last few.
Steve Harlocker. You each get 4 tickets. Ophelia Chambliss. And last one, Dan May. So again, you can see Heather after the meeting. Thank you, past President Rob.
All right, thank you.
Couple more announcements. We would like to wish Andy Siebold a good trip to Sandafa, Ethiopia, beginning this Friday. He is traveling with 30 members of Living World Church on a mission trip in a Bailey coach to the airport. As part of his trip, he will be presenting to the Rotary Club in Ethiopia, our partner, who is our partner on our global project to build toilets in Sandafa. We look forward to hearing about his trip when he returns. Additionally, we would like to wish past President Ann Druck congratulations on the birth of her first grandbaby this past week, Avelina. And now I would like to invite Debbie Ashway to the podium for Student Scholar recognition.
The York Rotary Foundation provides financial support for the academic success of York students seeking higher education. Thanks to the generous support of club members, York Rotary scholarships have been established to reward the academic success, community service, and student determination of York residents attending college, university, trade, or technical school. So I have 3 students to introduce to you. And the first one is Katrina Wolf. She is receiving the Cayley Scholarship. So before I tell you about Katrina, I thought I would tell you a little bit about the Cayley Scholarship. The Arlington Cayley Rising Musician Scholarship was created by Art's family and friends in honor of his 90th birthday in 2012. Art graduated from William Penn High School in York City and received a bachelor's degree from Westchester and a master's degree from Penn State. He also attended the Peabody School of Music. He retired from York Suburban High School as chair of the music department and director of bands. He was past director of the York City Band, the York College Band, and a past member of the York Symphony Orchestra, and an organizer of the Youth Symphony Art. Art was the founder of music director of the Pennsylvania Ambassadors of Music. He was a member of York Rotary for 19 years before his death on August 18th, 2021. So Katrina, she graduated from Dallastown. She's attending the Peabody Institute, and she, of course, is majoring in music. A fun thing about Katrina is she is a jazz listener, and she teaches cello. That is what her summer job is this year. She has 10 students, and she will receive a $1,000 scholarship. Our next recipient is Carson Lehman. And I'd like to tell you about the Deal Scholarship that he has received. The Charles W. Deal Jr. Scholarship was created by the Deal Family Fund of York County Community Foundation, which was created by Alma Deal in 1997 after Charlie's death in loving memory of her husband and their children. Charlie and Alma were the benefactors of many nonprofit organizations dedicated to furthering the well-being of children with an emphasis on their spiritual growth. So Carson has graduated from York Suburban. He's attending Penn State, main campus, and he's majoring in engineering material science. He works at Bridgewater Golf Course over this summer, and we found out that he's never had salmon, wasn't sure if he likes salmon, but he had his first try at it, and I think he liked it. All right, and our third scholarship recipient is Morgan Kaler, and I'll tell you a little bit about the Mangold Scholarship. The Edwin P. Mangold Scholarship was created by the estate of York Rotarian Ed Mangold, who was a member of the club for 6 years at his passing. Ed's bequest created the Endowed Scholarship Fund in May 2007. He was a Paul Harris Fellow and major donor member of York Rotary, a veteran of World War II, and a graduate of William Penn High School in York. Ed was vice president of York Penn Machinery Company in York for 30 years prior to his retirement, and board chairman and vice president of Cleanway Professional Cleaning Service before his death on November 26, 2006. So Morgan has graduated from Red Lion and will be attending St. Joseph University, and her major is in pharmacy. She's working at Minix Pharmacy. This year is her summer job, so that fits. And she's been a dancer since she was 3 years old. So the Mangold Scholarship, she will receive $1,250 for 4 years with a $5,000 total. So thank you to all of our scholarship recipients.
Katrina, Carson, and Morgan, I know I speak for the entire room when we say we wish you the best of luck with your college pursuits. And now I invite past President Josh George to the podium to induct new members.
Good afternoon. Before I introduce our new members, I would like to just take 1 second to acknowledge our speakers and the program today. I had an opportunity to work at CS Davidson early in my career, and I can truly say that it was an excellent place to work. I learned a lot while I worked there. And Dave, Linda, John, Kerryn, thank you for all that you do in the community, and thank you for all that you do in the industry. I really appreciate the opportunity I had to work with you guys. So. Okie doke. So one of my customary duties here at our club is to introduce our new members, and it's a privilege today to do that. I'm very happy that Courtney is here in the president's role so that she gets the credit for these new members and not Aaron. So, yep. So first, we will start with Andrew Barnes. He also goes by Andy. He went to Bishop Chatard High School in Indianapolis, and he went on to earn his bachelor's degree in accounting from the University of Indianapolis, a Master's of Arts and Humanities from NYU, a PhD in English Literature from Stony Brook University, and also a Master's of Fine Arts in Creative Writing from Bennington College. Nice. You might not be surprised to learn that he works at York College of Pennsylvania, where he is the Dean of the School of Arts, Communications, and Global Studies. His community service activities include serving on the Partnership Committee for the Appel Center, as a board member of the Time Space Limited, and he is working on becoming a board member for the York Symphony. His hobbies include weaving, and I didn't ask you about this, but I want to hear about weaving after the program today. That'd be awesome. He is married to David Foley, and he is proposed by none other than past president Glenn Miller, who has now assumed the most coveted title in Rotary, past president. Ladies and gentlemen, Andrew Barnes. All right, next we have Darren Floor. Darren is a graduate of Central York High School. He now works at Keystruct Construction, where he serves as the president. And if you know Keystruct, you probably know that Jerry Watson had founded the company many years ago and served as its president for very many years, sold it a few years ago. And now Darren has the coveted role of taking over Jerry's position at Keystruct. You decide. His hobbies include golf, cooking, and boating. He is married to Elizabeth. They have 2 kids, Riley, who's 15, and Ryan, who's 4. And of course, he is proposed by Jerry Watson. Ladies and gentlemen, Darren Floor. And I don't know if they did this on purpose, but they stood in alphabetical order up here, which actually goes perfectly with my script. Thank you very much for doing that. Next up, we have Lauren Shee. Lauren is a graduate of Central York High School. She earned her Bachelor of Arts in English Literary Studies from York College. She is employed by Logos Academy, where she serves as the Director of Individual Giving. Some of her community service includes she serves as a dog walker for the SPCA. She's been a business mentor for Junior Achievement. Her hobbies include running and spending time with family. She is married to Ryan, and they are the proud parents of Lillian, who is 4 months old. And she is proposed by Glenn Miller also. Ladies and gentlemen, Lauren Sheehy. And last but certainly not least, Anthony Wise. Anthony is a graduate of Red Lion High School, and he went on to earn a Bachelor's of Music from the Curtis Institute of Music. He is now the Executive Director for the York Symphony Orchestra. His hobbies include music, fishing, traveling, and hiking with his dog. And he is proposed by, no surprise, Dick Brown. Ladies and gentlemen, Anthony Wise.
Thank you, past President Josh. New members, I want to welcome you to the club. I'm sure you will enjoy your time here. Rotarians, if you could please join me in welcoming them to the club. You may be seated. At this time, I would like to invite past President John Kleindens to the podium to introduce today's program.
I have the pleasure of introducing our speakers today, which is great because I get to work with them every day. So, and one of them, I'll point out, I've gotten to work with for 50 years, 50 years. You'll be able to tell which one that is. Sorry, so our first speaker is Dave Davidson. Dave Davidson Jr. is the 3rd generation of the family that founded CS Davidson Incorporated, a multidisciplinary civil engineering company located in York. 2023 marks the firm's 100th anniversary. Dave's been with the firm for 50 years and today serves as the chairman of the board of directors and chief financial officer for the organization. He continues to practice as a municipal engineer, serving as engineer of record for Spring Garden Township and Springfield Township. Dave's a graduate of Lehigh University with a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering. He received a Master's of Environmental and Water Resources Engineering from Vanderbilt University. Our second speaker will be Kerryn Fulton, who is the President and Chief Executive Officer for the firm. In 2016, she became the 6th president and the first female to serve in this role. Kerryn is a structural engineer and joined the firm in 2001. She was born and raised in Juniata County and earned her engineering degree from the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. Together, Kerryn, Dave, and the rest of the senior leadership team, and I would point out that the senior leadership team is with us today at the second table, so if you get a chance to say hello, they're here, along with our 2 external directors on our board of directors, Jody Keller and Heather Warner, who are both here. So thank you for coming today. Dave and Kerryn will talk about how they manage and lead the employee-owned firm. They look forward to sharing the history of the firm, projects that have helped to shape York County into what it is today, and a glimpse into what the future may hold for the firm. I believe Dave is going to speak first. Fellow Rotarians, please welcome CS Davidson Incorporated leaders Dave Davidson and Kerryn Fulton.
Good afternoon. And thank you for the opportunity to speak before this august group. My pleasure to do so. Since I've been with the firm for half its duration, I'm the person that's going to give you the history of the firm, and Kerryn is going to give you the rest of the story. But I'm going to start off with a little before the history of the firm. My great-grandfather was named McClellan Davidson, was a heating and plumbing contractor in Hanover, Pennsylvania. This is a drawing that was done possibly by my grandfather, Carl. But that business, Davidson H&C, or Heating and Construction, is actually still in existence in Hanover today. It's not owned by the Davidson family anymore, but they're on their fourth generation of Bechtels that do own the business. So he founded businesses that lasted. He very early decided that he probably didn't want to be a mechanical contractor. So he went to Washington and Lee and got a degree in civil engineering. When he returned from World War I, he started his own business in Hanover as a civil engineer. That was 1923. He moved to York in 1931. And it's sort of an interesting picture here. This, you probably can recognize the Yorktown Hotel on the left-hand side of the picture. There's a big billboard for York Water Company next to it. And if you get real close to the picture, the windows underneath that York Water Company sign say C.S. Davidson Civil Engineer. His first office was what's now an alleyway next to the Yorktown Hotel. He's moved around to various locations in York during his tenure in York, and incorporated the company in 1948. Now, this is a picture of the person in the middle is my father, Dave Sr. He really enjoyed his pipes, and if any of you knew him, he took over as president upon my grandfather Carl's death in 1965. But prior to that, Carl was kind of easing into retirement. He was a big golf enthusiast. He was a photographic hobbyist at a time when photography was actually really difficult to do. So my father ran the firm in practice during the post-war housing boom that resulted in developments such as, for instance, Haynes Acres is a good example. We did all the design and layout for Haynes Acres. In 1972, the U.S. passed the Clean Water Act, which funneled a lot of federal dollars into wastewater collection and treatment. So during his term as president, it was just the beginning of the boom in engineering for infrastructure. Unfortunately, in 1973, he passed away very unexpectedly. He died of a heart attack, and nobody saw that coming. So at that point, my mother was on the board. Jody Appel was on the board of directors for C.S. Davidson, basically inherited the whole thing and had a major decision to make as to what to do with the firm. She could have just sold it, but she decided to assume the chairmanship of the board and appointed George Miller on the left here as the president of the firm. He was at the time the only professional engineer we had at C.S. Davidson Incorporated. We had to have an engineer in responsible charge in order to do business as an engineering firm. So she named him as president. She assumed the chairmanship of the board, and that was, as I said, in 1973. Called me up. I was at Vanderbilt University at the time in graduate school, and asked if I would come home just for a couple of months to try to stabilize things. And that was 50 years ago. Linda and I had ideas after graduate school of possibly going into the Peace Corps. She was a home ec teacher, and I was a degree in civil engineering and water resources. So we figured it was a pretty good combination, but you know, that never came to pass. At any rate, George was the president from 1973 to 1983, which is when I took over. That was a very critical period in C.S. Davidson's history because it was a very unusual situation to be basically deprived of the person that knew everything that was going on and nobody else knew what was going on. But it also changed the flavor of the firm a little bit. Anyone that knows Jody knows that she was very community minded and still is. She chaired numerous boards, Penn State, York, YW, Cultural Alliance, Community Foundation. I mean, she really got the community involvement aspect of C.S. Davidson started in that 10-year period. So after my couple of months and 10 years of stabilizing thing. I think she decided that maybe things were stable enough that it was time for a change. And she and George took a step back and turned the firm over to me and Linda. I took the presidency starting in 1983 and continued until 2008, which by the way is 25 years. So it's a 100-year firm. I was there for 50. I was president for 25, and that was not planned. That just worked out that way. I was in charge of the engineering aspects of the firm, and Linda was in charge of human resources, benefits administration, community involvement, contributions, that sort of thing. We kind of characterized our roles as I was in charge of making money and she was in charge of spending it. And I figured as long as I stayed slightly ahead of her in her role, we'd be all right as a firm. So it was actually a good balance of management styles because I was very much engineering oriented and everything was pretty black and white, ones and zeros, just do this and it'll fix the problem. Linda would say, well, yes, but if you do that, everybody will quit. You can't do that. So we compromised. We during our tenure realized that we really didn't have a good succession plan for the company. Towards the end of my term, I was approaching 50 years old and I'd always heard that ownership transition takes a long time to do. We made a couple of false starts in the late 1990s. And in 2003, we sold 60% of the firm to an employee stock ownership plan, or ESOP, which was in retrospect an excellent idea. We completed that transaction in 2019, and CS Davidson is now 100% employee owned, and it has worked out very well. I'm glad we did that. Anyway, in 2008, I decided enough's enough and stepped down. And you may recognize this guy. You see on the left-hand side, he's actually doing work. On the right-hand side, he is in more typical pose of accepting awards. Be that as it may, I get even, John. He saw the company through some of the toughest economic times we've ever seen. I mean, we were a 120-person firm and we went down to 70 during the economic recession in the late 2000s. He very definitely continued the policy of community involvement. John is on every board everywhere. I mean, he has done honors to his women predecessors in that regard. Sertoma, Rotary, Hospital Board, you name it, he's on it. So that was a good period in our time, followed by Kerryn Fulton, our current CEO. She's the one in the middle. As John said, she's the first female president we've ever had. She's also the first non-civil engineer president we've ever had. Everybody else is a male civil engineer. She's a structural engineer. She's also a good blend of Linda's and my management style. She gets it with the numbers, but she also gets it with the HR skills. So it's a very good combination of Linda and me in one person. And as I mentioned earlier, we, under her leadership, completed the last 40% of our ESOP ownership transition in 2019. So that in a nutshell is a century of history in about what, 5 minutes. I'd like to share a few notable projects with you that you might recognize that we did during that period of time. One of the unique features of our firm is that we never throw anything away. We have archives that go back to 1923, literally. So some of this stuff, I mean, that may or may not be recognizable. That's the Windham Hills plan from 1933. No, I'm sorry, 1931. We collaborated, my grandfather collaborated with Olmsted Brothers Landscape Architects. That's the Olmsted, like Central Park in New York and the US Capitol. So it was a pretty high profile project. That and the golf course. If you notice the timing, he moved to York in 1931 and Windham Hills started in 1931 and the golf course is shown there in 1931. And he was an avid golfer. I think his move to York was partly for business reasons and partly because this was a really nice golf course. So he did do work for the country club. This may not look meaningful, but it's the very beginnings of the planning of this building that we're sitting in today. There was a topographic survey, all those little hand-drawn numbers on there, elevations, and that was the basis for the beginnings of the siting of the building for the country club itself back in 1930. That was actually 1925. So he also got involved quite a bit in downtown York. We did surveys in great detail of downtown. This is the block bounded by King Market, Beaver and Duke. This drawing is actually twice as large, but you couldn't see it if we put the whole drawing up. Center Continental Squares at the top, and all the various buildings are labeled with the name of the business or church or whatever that was in there. It's actually kind of fascinating to look at, and you can see some of the old department stores and Five and Dimes and whatnot. More recently, we've been the York County Heritage Rail Trails engineers for 30-some years. I think it started in 1992. It's now possible to ride or hike from Rudy Park in York County down to the Maryland line, which is the part that we did. And from there it continues down almost to Baltimore. So it's a pretty nice amenity. Hundreds of thousands of people use that facility every year. We're proud to be a part of that. Another high visibility project that's much more recent than the other ones is the Gettysburg National Museum and Visitor Center in Gettysburg. This was a structural project. I had to put that in because Kerryn's a structural project engineer and she's my boss. But this is a very high profile project and one of the larger structural projects we did. And it was good to, so that's where we were and what we've done. But how did we manage to stay in one piece for 100 years? What's the secret sauce that enables not only to survive, but to thrive in a variety of circumstances? Kerryn's going to address that, but first I'd like to play you a short video just as a lead in.
100 years for any company is significant. It's only ever had 6 presidents. I always wonder, back in 1923, what Carl Davidson's vision was for the company and what he would think if he came to look around the company in 2023 and see where we are in the 100th year. I think he'd be impressed.
Well, it's a pretty impressive milestone. It means we've been doing something right for a century. It has a family feel to it, has a sort of a local flavor that you don't get with a big corporation.
You could be the best engineer in your graduating class and have a 4.0 average. But if you don't have good people skills, you can't succeed at CS Davidson. I truly love to watch somebody take on new challenges and figure out what it is that makes them tick, what it is that motivates them to do better and grow professionally and succeed.
For a company to last for 100 years, you have to have a very, very strong foundation. And as a young engineer, it became very evident to me that integrity and quality of service was very, very important.
We talk a lot about the fact that we oftentimes keep long-term employees. And I think that long-term employment allows us over the years to kind of mold a very unique engineer that is capable of working with a community. I often talk about the fact that the engineers have to be able to take a very technical topic and turn it into a subject matter that allows the elected officials to make the policy decisions that are right with that information.
When I got here, I immediately sensed that I was in the right place. In the first 15 minutes, I knew I was at the right company. And that is because what I sensed was that this company was all about hard work and taking care of their people. I feel that I have been able to succeed here because I'm surrounded by great people. It's a male-dominated company and it's a male-dominated industry. I couldn't be in my position if it weren't for all of the great men that I work with. And so it's been pretty special that I have been supported along the way and encouraged to reach out and succeed at this position.
Interestingly enough, the most significant event in the last century that really changed the direction of the company was my father's death in 1973. Someone had to step in and take a leadership role to give the company direction. My mother filled that role and filled it quite well. She became the chairman of the board and actually laid the foundation for the company the way it is today. At the time she took over, it was 12 to 15 people surveying and civil engineering. Today, we're 88 people, civil, structural, surveying, materials testing, quite a variety of services.
A company that can survive and excel beyond 100 years is a company that can live through the adversities that we face, is accepting of kind of a dynamic change. CS Davidson has been all those things. I was able to watch the last generation of Davidsons be at the helm, and it was a pleasure to work under Dave. Wasn't quite sure where we were going to go after that. It was clear that the family was not going to stay in that business. And I think we as a group of employees kind of worked with the Davidsons to create the model of an ESOP that ultimately, I think, has taken us to a place where we are in a sustainable company that continue to evolve after 3 generations of family.
We have so many talented people and have a broad range of experience. We show honor for the work that we all do, whether it's answering the phone and running copies or designing a bridge or going to municipal meetings to represent the firm at the township level. I just feel like everyone works together as a team and respects each other, and that makes us a little bit different.
I'm most proud of our people at CS Davidson. I'm most proud of our engineers, watching them develop, our surveyors, our inspectors, all of the people who make us successful. That's who I'm most proud of.
The most important thing that we not change is our ability to change, the ability to adapt to the technology that is available to us and the engineering that we're trying to perform.
I think our projects impact all of the communities we work for every day. We solve problems both in their infrastructure, their utilities, their general technical assistance. I take a lot of pride in that because as you drive around the South Central Pennsylvania area, you can see projects we've done that make life better for everybody. We find a problem, we try to solve it. And that remains true today as it did in 1923.
Thank you. Okay. So not every company achieves the 100-year milestone. However, CS Davidson did, and that's because we are built on a very, very strong foundation, and it's thanks to our ability to adapt and change with time. So the first thing I want to talk about is this strong foundation on which we're built. It's thanks again to the Davidson family, 3 generations who laid down some strong principles upon which we've built the company, and it's how we run the company today. So the first one I'm going to talk about is having a commitment to the community. Now you see that in our volunteerism, you see that in our service on many local nonprofit boards. It is giving back to the community is something that we really reinforce with all of the employees at CS Davidson. But that's not the only way that we show our commitment to the community. Now, as Dave has just given you a really nice history about, we were founded in York County 100 years ago in 1923. And 100 years later, we have expanded all the way to Gettysburg and Lancaster. That's as far as we've expanded. But that's been intentional on our part. And that is because we are committed to providing excellent engineering and surveying services to our local communities. So another founding principle is to always make sure that we do right by our clients. And we do that by providing excellent service. It's thanks to providing excellent service that we have developed some very, very long-term relationships with clients. West York Borough is a client that we have been serving continuously since 1926. In this photo, we actually have a picture. That's Carl Davidson looking over a sewer project that he worked on in West York Borough. So we have a strong, strong commitment to our clients. And the third major guiding principle for us is that we work very hard to take care of our employees. Now, when we hire employees at CS Davidson, our goal is to hire for life. Now, I realize in this day and age, hiring somebody for life is a really lofty goal, but it's possible and it happens at CS Davidson. And that is because we take excellent care of our employees. We offer opportunities for career growth and advancement. We give our employees the opportunity to work on great projects right here in South Central PA. And I got to tell you, it's awfully rewarding to be able to see the projects that you're working on being built practically in your own backyard. And of course, compensation is always part of the equation of taking care of people. And of course, we offer a very competitive, base salary and bonuses. But one thing that sets us apart is that we contribute to not one, but two very lucrative retirement programs for our employees. So we're really, really committed to taking care of our employees. So, so these are the major principles that have been in place for a long, long time. They do not change and they will not change moving forward. But we also recognize that we do have to adapt with time because, again, adaptation is important if you're going to continue to thrive and survive. So with that being said, I want to talk about some of the changes that we have made in recent years. Again, we've already talked about this in this presentation, but we have adapted our ownership at CS Davidson. If you look back 20 years ago, Dave and Linda were evaluating, what does ownership look like in the future for CS Davidson? And, I give them so much credit because they could have chosen to sell us to another company, right? And then in that case, CS Davidson would no longer exist as it does today. But instead, they decided to take a different path. They decided to go down the path of making us into an employee-owned firm. And so that took time. But as of January 1st of 2020, we did become 100% employee owned. We have adapted our ownership at CS Davidson. Another thing that we've changed with time, we've changed how we do our work, right? A lot of that is thanks to technology. So I love this photo. It's really an iconic photo for us. This is a picture of some of our staff actually collecting field survey data. That's actually Dave Davidson Sr. sitting and taking the field notes. But, back in the day, in order to go out and do survey work, it took two men on a crew to do this work. Today, thanks to technology, you're looking at one person with a robot. We've adapted the way that we do our work. And another recent change for the company is we've changed how we collect and share information. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Well, in our industry, and what we do at CS Davidson, we design roads and we design bridges and stormwater. We review a whole lot of subdivision plans. And what comes with that is a lot of paperwork, blueprints, reports, letters. It's really important for us to keep track of all of this information. Internally, we have to make sure we're really organized and have access to all the most current data. And plans and letters. And it's the same for our clients. And so, about 10 years ago, it was actually, the idea came out of our bridge team, and our bridge guys said, it would be really, really great if we could find a better way to keep track of all these blueprints and all of these reports. And it would be fantastic if we could use a digital map and locate all of our bridges on a map. And then if you clicked on a particular bridge, up would come the plans and up would come the reports, and we could access it and our clients could access it. Okay, so this was not a new idea, right? What I'm talking about here is GIS software. Okay, and GIS software, what was on the market then and is still today, it's rather complex, sophisticated software, difficult to use. So we decided we're going to create our own GIS software, and that's exactly what we did. We created our own proprietary software called CS Datum. It's everything we want it to be, right? User-friendly, low cost, something that we use. We have clients that subscribe to it, and it has grown today. We have almost 100 subscribers using the program. And looking ahead, I think that the sky's the limit. I think we've only just begun with what we can do in terms of software services at CS Davidson. So we have changed the way that we do our work and how we manage and store and share information by developing software services. So With all of that being said, CS Davidson is absolutely a remarkable company. We have a rich history. We have an abundance of projects, both small and large, that have shaped the local communities. We have a set of wonderful sustaining guidelines and principles laid down by the 3 generations of Davidsons that help us run the company. And we've shown an ability to adapt and change with time. I want to thank everybody here. Thank you to the community. Thank you for all of your support. And I look forward to launching into another success, another 100 years of success at CS Davidson. So thank you very much. So with that, I'm going to invite Dave back up to the podium to join me. I'm told that it is customary that we take questions from the audience. So Dave and I will tag team this effort and we'll see how it goes. Are there any questions? Don't see any questions. Yes, ma'am. Yes, so great question. I think the question, if I can repeat that, is that we're talking about the software at CS Davidson. And I think the question is that something that's available to more than just our client base in York, Adams, and Lancaster counties? And so, yes, it is available. We've really built it primarily for municipal clients, but it's certainly not limited to that geography. It is something that could be used really widely across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
The question was, how does artificial intelligence affect our business? And it's a good question. It's a little early to tell. I think it has great potential. It also can totally change the industry depending on who you believe. AI is being used now for medical diagnosis, which is impressive. AI is being used for guidance systems on vehicles. There's no reason that AI couldn't be used for design. What I like to characterize engineering as, it's not all numbers and it's not all plug and play. There's an element of judgment involved in doing engineering design that you can use very sophisticated software tools, including AI. But at the end of the day, the person responsible for that design has to be able to look at it and say, yes, that's a reasonable answer. And I don't know that AI can do that yet. We'll see in the next decade or so. I think it's going to move pretty fast. It's a very good question. The jury's still out and it's too early to tell.
Oh, my.
Jane. You want to do that? Your turn.
So the question.
Actually, we'll share this.
We'll share this one?
Yeah, you go ahead and talk about the mechanics of it.
Well, the question is, what are the challenges of becoming an employee-owned firm? So I think I'm just going to speak from my own perspective. I don't know if this is the right answer in your mind, but I think whenever you're the owner of the firm, when you're running the show, that you know a lot. And I think when you become employee owned, it was really that passing of the baton and that handing down of a wealth of information. And again, it's kind of like what Dave said during his presentation. It's not just black and white numbers. There's certain judgment that goes into running the firm, making good decisions, good strategic decisions for the firm. And so I think for me personally, it's that handing of the baton and making sure that we're passing along that information from the former owners.
And actually, my answer would have been the hardest part probably was the parting of the ways from the family and the business. That was difficult, at least from my perspective, it was, because that was sort of our identity carried through the ownership of that company. And to say, all right, something has to happen here. We either shut the doors, we sell it, or we do something else, and something else was employee ownership. Turns out that something else is the right thing to do. It's still a family business. It still feels like the same business, but it was a difficult decision.
Okay, so the question is, what kind of trends we're seeing in the design work that we're doing. Boy, I don't know how big picture to go with this one. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, as in many things, design work is a moving target. Regulations change frequently. The emphasis, you mentioned stormwater, the emphasis on stormwater management and pollution control is increasing exponentially because Pennsylvania is way, way, way behind the mark on the Chesapeake Bay plan. That's going to get a lot worse, depending on your perspective, a lot better, a lot worse in York and Adams and Lancaster counties before it calms down, because there's a real push on to manage stormwater and treat basically stormwater to benefit the Chesapeake Bay. Structural work, codes change, bridge work, PennDOT regulations change. I wouldn't say it's anything different than it's been over the past 50 years. It's just continual change. The only thing that's been constant is the change in the regulations and the change in the way you do things. Things happen faster, I will say that. Used to be some of the drawings that were up on the screen that were done in the 30s and 20s were done in ink on linen by hand and took days, if not weeks, to produce. Now you can crank out a 40 plan set of plans for land development plan just by pushing the button on your computer and the plotter spits them out. So everything happens a lot faster. I'm not sure it happens better, but it is faster.
So I'm just going to tag on to that as well in terms of another trend that we've seen. You're touching on the fact that there's been a lot of emphasis on infrastructure spending, right? And one thing that's been really neat to watch happen, is with our municipalities who've been prepared for it, maybe had good planning in place. Now the funding is finally available to fund some of these projects they've wanted to do. We're seeing a lot of emphasis also on parks and recreation as well. A lot of building of, again, more rail trails are being installed, more parks and whatnot. So that's also been really gratifying to see some of that finally coming to fruition. So, yes.
Surprised as engineers with all the speed with which the I-95 collapse was able to be remedied.
Yeah, this is a structural question. The question was, were we surprised at the speed with which I-95 was fixed? I'm going to say yes and no. I think that it is amazing what our government officials can get done when they all put their minds to it. Boy, I'm going to show my bias if I'm not careful, but no, I will tell you, I'm not terribly surprised that they were able to get that done with the speed at which, and they needed to, right? I mean, you can shut down a major corridor, but that causes an awful lot of headaches. So no, I will say I am not surprised. I'm pleased. Yeah, I'm sorry. Right, I was right. And I think the comment was that whether or not we were surprised with the technology that was available to get that done, and no, right, yes. Again, just happy to see that get done in such a quick turnaround. Yes. I don't care. How about in the back? Right. Yeah, so I gotta say, I like how you're thinking. So the question was whether or not we could utilize our software and enhance it perhaps to, incorporate some safety related measuring, if you will, and monitoring. And I would say that as of right now, no, we don't do that in the software. But I like the idea.
Just to build on that a little bit. Keep in mind, the software was designed as essentially a portable filing system, that you had papers and plans in the office that you didn't want to drag out into the field and look at. You wanted them on a tablet so that if you punch a button on the tablet, you can see those plans. It doesn't have the analytical capabilities that you're talking of. That's approaching true GIS, which is, as Kerryn mentioned, a very complicated, very expensive system. It can be done. Our stuff can export to a GIS. So it could be done, but we didn't build it as a vehicle for analysis. We built it as a vehicle for storage and information retrieval, and kept it as simple as possible so that you can hand it to a roadmaster in a township and say, go out there and stand on that inlet, take a picture of it. It knows where your laptop is. It puts a pin down there and it stores a picture in the pin. That's the kind of software it is.
Yes, sir.
I have a question for Linda.
Uh-huh.
Clearly, you didn't expect the role that you had 50 years ago. Could you discuss a little bit the culture? Because that's been critical to the success of the company. And here you are in a position of influence, not of control, and not in a technical role or a business role, but of shaping the culture in a firm, in an industry that's changing so dramatically. You'd be willing to talk about the cultural issues.
And Linda's been asked to speak to the cultural changes at CS Davidson, especially in the rapidly changing world that we live in.
I could actually go on for a long time on this one, but I think our time is about out. But I will say, I was a teacher. My mother-in-law, Jody Davidson Appel, convinced me that I would have value in the engineering company. And I said, I don't do math. And she said, no, but engineers do that. You do people. We need somebody at CS Davidson that does people. And so I came in to see what she did. The first thing we did after she convinced me that I could deal with the math, the people that would do the math, was to write my job description. And in my job description in 1980 was community service, not reporting to Dave, but working with Dave. And then we put all these HR functions in, which I honestly had no schooling in because I was a teacher. But in reality, as a teacher, you do have HR skills and capabilities if you're a good teacher. So she kind of guided me, and she was my mentor. And we sat down and figured out, if the admin is not happy because she has no light in her office, let's fix this. If this engineer isn't happy because they're not getting the opportunity to grow, let's fix this. So I developed a system of sitting down with every employee, very often working out what it is they needed to make their job important enough that they enjoyed coming to work every day and stayed. I don't know if that answers your question, but I give a lot of credit to my mother-in-law, who, by the way, is also turning 100 this year. So it's been my pleasure.
Linda and Kerryn and Dave, thank you very, very much for being here today. It's very rare for a company to last 3 generations, and also very rare for a company to last 100 years. And you guys did both of that with CS Davidson. So congratulations to you and thank you again for being here today. As you all know, instead of giving the speakers a gift, we purchase a book and we ask them to sign the book plate and we donate that locally. This week's book will be donated to the York Jewish Community Center's childcare program. Next week, we will hear from Peter Sabata, founder and CEO of Return Logic. Everyone told Peter that he couldn't do it. He'd never be able to build a $100 million subscription-based software as a service company in central Pennsylvania. Peter set out to prove everyone wrong. Join us in this presentation as Peter sheds light on the hidden pitfalls and challenges that often go unmentioned. Discover why building a startup might not be the right path for everyone and gain valuable insights as to help you make an informed decision about your entrepreneurial journey. This meeting is now adjourned.